We start with what is called the 3 mind poisons, and these are these 3 emotions or states of mind is behind all the wrongdoings and source of all the negative actions and causes of creating suffering and pain and problem to ourselves and others. But most of the time we don't recognize this, we don't know. We always think that our problems come from somewhere else, somebody else. But if you look a little bit deeply, then it is these 3 states of mind. The first is hatred. Hatred is, as long as you have hatred in us, then first we do something to harm somebody, because hatred is emotion that has lots of anger, lots of wishing to harm somebody, lots of maliciousness, lots of ill will. And so therefore with hatred in heart, we can't do something nice, something kind, something beneficial. So we do lots of destructions with hatred. We can fight, we can kill, we can do most violent things in the world. And we most of the time think that it is something that's good for us, but if you look a little bit deeply, it doesn't do anything good for us, because as long as we have hatred, we feel uncomfortable, we feel disturbed, we lose sleep, we lose peace of mind. And when we act with hatred, then the reaction is also something terrible, and so therefore we keep on suffering and we keep on causing suffering to others. Most obvious outcome of the hatred is war, and so we can all see how painful and how much suffering it creates for all sides when we have a war. Second mind poison is greed. Greed and craving, that I want something more, I want that, I wish to have something, that craving, a very strong kind of craving and attachment and greed. This usually comes as something very nice, that if I had this, then it will be so nice for me and things like that. But if you look a little bit deeply, it is a pain in itself, it's a suffering in itself, because, as soon as you have greed and craving, you feel a lack of something, you feel that you are not having enough, you are not having something that you should be having, and so therefore you feel you are not efficient or not sufficient or not good enough, or you are not fulfilled, you are not satisfied. There is a sense of unsatisfaction. The sense of unsatisfaction is a pain and problem, and with that you cannot have peace of mind, you cannot be happy, you cannot be joyful. And then when you act out this greed and craving, then you snatch things from others, you do everything possible, even very negative things, to get those things that you feel you need or you are craving for. And in the process, then you create lots of sufferings for others. And that has same. It will bring also hatred. It will also bring, all kind of negative actions. So therefore, it results into more and more problem. One cannot have, how much satisfied you are, how much happy you are, how much contented you are, cannot be measured by how much things you have. You can have, billions of things and, dollars or euros or whatever, and still you can be totally unsatisfied. So therefore, the greed can never be fulfilled, unless you do it something with yourself, with your own state of mind, with your own way of seeing. And so therefore the satisfaction cannot be satisfied by the bringing things or getting things or accumulating things. It can only be satisfied by learning how to bring peace and joy and contentment and satisfaction within ourselves. And the third mind poison is what we sometimes call ignorance. Actually, both this hatred and craving and other negative emotions like too much jealousy, envy, too much arrogance, pride, all these things come from ignorance, that we want to be happy, we want to be, joyful, we want to have a very positive, joyful, happy life. But we don't know how to do that, and we don't know how to, how to bring the most, positive experience for ourselves, happiness and joy, and we don't know how to bring that to others. So that's why, that ignorance is actually the basic cause for the other two. So therefore, these three things are the real kind of causes of suffering for an individual like myself. But these three things are also causes of almost all, sources of problems in the world. If we human beings can reduce these three things and can increase the opposite of that, like loving kindness, compassion, joy, satisfaction, understanding, then, it could create a most wonderful society and most wonderful world for ourselves, to create a very peaceful and progressive and joyful and creative world. Actually doesn't need too much more. We just need to be kind to each other. So therefore the remedy or the how to work on these three negative emotions in us is that we each, it's not something that can be done with a kind of a law or a rule or something like that. It has to be done internally. It has to be done with understanding, with a certain kind of, a training within ourselves. And first thing is to understand this, understand and reflect how these negative state of mind or mind poisons are really mind poisons. is the cause of so much trouble and pain for ourselves, and so much cause of pain and troubles for others. And when we see this, then we need to, we need to learn to not react with that. So therefore, the training is maybe three things. The first is that we stop reacting with those. We stop reacting with hatred, with greed, with too much like envy and jealousy. When we see that these emotions are arising in us, then immediately, to become mindful that this is not something which is bringing something good for me and others. So therefore, I kind of decide not to react and let it, because every emotion comes and goes. If you don't do anything, it will go. So therefore, to let it go, to let it, let it subside by itself. Because every emotion is very, emotions are very strong. Emotions can be, completely, overpowering and very strong and create so much strong kind of actions. But then, in another way, it is also not that strong because it doesn't last. It comes and goes and comes and goes, and you have to put more fuel to it to make it alive. So therefore, if you refuse to put fuel, and if you refuse to see it as something useful and good for us, then we can let it go without, kind of keeping it inside. The second is that when we see this happening, when we have these emotions arising or this, then to bring certain awareness and mindfulness that we can actually focus our mind on something opposite. When there is a hatred, then allow to focus our mind on something that's kind, loving, grateful, joyful, some incident, some people, some situation, something that is the opposite of this hatred and anger and, too much jealousy and too much craving and things like that. When we can do something like that, at that moment, that negative emotion we can let that go, and we can allow our mind to feel the other side, which actually is much more beneficial for us and much more beneficial for the whole world. The third is to understand. The third method is to understand that all these emotions is something that arises from our mind. It arises and dissolves, and arises and dissolves. That, and it is something that is actually something that just, it's not something coming to us from somewhere else. It's not something which is always there. It is something that, that just like waves, it just arises and then dissolves. And that, whether it's a negative emotion like a mind poisons, or whether it's a positive emotion like loving kindness and compassion, both are just our own awareness, our own consciousness, our own mind. So therefore, they are not separate from us. It's not that these emotions are, kind of coming to us and is that we need to get rid of it, we need to hold on. It's not something that is, that is holding on us, but it is something that is arising from our own mind. And when we can just relax, these like waves can come and then just go and come, and it's because it is not something else. It's just arising or manifestation of our own mind. So if we know how to do that, we can see them arise and dissolve and arise and dissolve, and we can watch them like we watch waves on the ocean and not get totally involved with that and not be affected by that and overwhelmed by that. And that's actually meditation. And we can do that. When we can do that, then we can become a little bit free from those emotions. And so therefore we can be master of our own selves. And when we learn through our training, through our exercises, that we can let those negative emotions and mind poisons come and go without, overpowering us and making us do things which is harming other people and harming ourselves, then we become free. And when we know that we are free from these things, I think that is the most strongest, sense of joy and sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, because we know that we need not be harmed by anything, and we cannot be overpowered by anything, so we are totally free. So that's the practice, and that's the way of bringing out the best of ourselves and bringing peace and joy in ourselves and peace and joy towards other people around us and also to the world. This is, I think, the essence of the teaching of the Buddha.